Welcome to the first episode of my podcast that doesn't even have a name quite yet, but that's okay. We're going to run with it. My name's Crew. You might know me as the guy that has run for over 2,500 days in a row and talks about different ideas and perspectives on Instagram, or the guy that pisses everybody off with his perspectives, or both. So without diving into my entire life story and trying to fit it into a 60-second clip like I'm trying to avoid doing by creating this podcast, I want to dive into all of the absolutely incredible questions that I got yesterday when I put up a story on my Instagram saying that I'm starting this podcast, and I got so many insightful and detailed questions that I am super excited to talk through. So I probably got 100 different ones. I've saved about 15. So if I'm looking down, that's because I'm looking down at my phone. And I just want to talk through every single one of these as efficiently as I can. Rambling on is kind of my job, but I'm trying to be very succinct and, again, effective in my communication. Another reason I started this podcast. So let's dive right into these questions and see what we got. So, first question I got here: when you get sick, you still running? So, what this person is referring to, obviously, is my running streak. So, it's been almost 7 years since I have run a minimum of 1 mile every single morning. So, started when I was 17. I'm 24 now. Have not missed a day since then. So, in this 7-year period, I have been sick many times. I've thrown up multiple times on the run. I have had many terrible days of running. I'll just put it that way. When I am sick, I have two options: to run or not to run, obviously. The mental battle here now is not, do I run or do I not? It's, well, how good or bad am I going to feel when I'm running? But I think a lot of people get stuck in just this scenario where the obstacle in the way of getting the thing done actually holds weight in not getting it done. So it does turn into, am I going to or am I not? I have removed the option, right? Because running for me is a non-negotiable. Covering that distance is an absolute non-negotiable. So when I'm sick, or when it's pouring rain outside, or when anything tries to get in the way, I look at that thing and I say, okay, perfect. This obstacle is going to make keeping the promise even more valuable because it's even more difficult to overcome. Next question: how do you stop comparisons to people that are quote unquote more successful? Answering this question takes a ton of honesty, because when you look around, this might be on social media, this might be just the people that you're around in your community. If you're going to analyze somebody's success, you actually have to know a lot more about them than you probably do, right? So if you see somebody's really nice car, you might think that that is success. But do you know what their relationships look like? Do you know how well they can communicate or translate their ideas? Do you know how happy or fulfilled they are? You only know of other people what they're willing to share with you. And so I think when we are seeing success in other people, we don't actually know if they're successful. And the honesty part here is reflecting on the truth about that within yourself. How successful do you feel? What does success actually look like? You know, are you living in alignment with the person that you want to be? Are you honest in how you present yourself to other people? Do you have fulfilling relationships? It's such a difficult thing to discern because everybody wants to come off as successful. And so, of course, people are going to show up their best when they're, posting a photo on Instagram, or, I don't know, just talking to somebody in general, right? Nobody goes up and says, oh yeah, here's all the things that are going poorly for me. Let me explain, right? It's always some sort of front. And that's why for myself, I have always tried to tap into the honesty as much as I can and say, okay, this person has X, Y, and Z. Maybe they make this amount of money, but do they have the future that I'm going to have? Because even if I don't have anything to show for today, I know that eventually all of my behaviors that compound positively are going to turn into something incredible. And, just a pure metric of money doesn't really show that. It doesn't really have that nuance. Next question, how do you deal with perfectionism and how has it shaped you? So perfectionism is actually one of my favorite topics. So I not only deal with perfectionism, I damn near glorify perfectionism because I always say someone who's a perfectionist gets a hell of a lot closer to perfect than someone who doesn't give a shit. And so if you have this desire to be perfect, I would imagine that you're not actually going to reach perfection, but you just want to be really freaking good at something. I want to be really freaking good at something. I want to be really freaking good at everything I do, right? And so perfectionism, obsession, overthinking, all of these traits that are demonized typically, I think very highly of. Because, when someone tells me, man, I can't go to bed at night, I'm just thinking about everything, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z, I go, hell yeah, that's the coolest thing ever because your mind is actually working. Your thoughts are racing. Race the thoughts. That is an absolute positive because you're probably trying to process something important. You're trying to process ideas or perspectives that hold weight in your life. And when people are passive and they let those things go, why would you want that? Why would you want life to be so easily digested in your mind? That would mean your life doesn't have much to it. And that's not the best existence. So perfectionism, I've been that way my whole life. I'll work for hours a day on something that doesn't even matter just for the principle of wanting to be good at it. And again, I look at that positively because all of the things that I've achieved have come out of that very high processing in terms of my mind and how I approach things. Now, of course, perfectionism, obsession, all of these things, there is a negative side to that where I think just from being that kind of way, you actually learn over time to, lessen the obsession. Because if you're going to let it be destructive, right, the perfectionism becomes destructive and it steals away your time from other important things. Well, then you have to really decide what your priorities are. And if you have a clear understanding of your priorities, the direction in terms of your behavior is actually pretty easy, but it's very difficult if you don't actually have a solid, organized perspective of what really matters to you. So I would say to mitigate the downfalls of perfectionism, right, sit down with yourself, write down some ideas and say, what do I actually care about? Because if you're a perfectionist in some skill that has absolutely nothing to do with the direction you're trying to go in your life, well, there's only so many hours in the day, and maybe it would be worth lowering the obsession or perfectionism in that category. But in general, right, the ability to stick to something and revisit that skill every single day, and again, almost be obsessed with it, I think is a positive part of the toolkit if you can apply it properly. The next question here, do you think consuming content is beneficial? If so, what/where do you consume from? This is a really tough question because my job is creating content, right? My real thought on this is that the sliver of beneficial content on social media is, the tiniest little sliver possible, and the rest, as wide as my arms can go, is destructive, is manipulating, is a waste of time. So to be a higher functioning person, let's say, to live above the average line, if you're going to use social media, it is going to be 10 times the work of the normal person going on social media, because the normal person going on social media is watching damn Kim Kardashian and shit and just flooding their mind with garbage, right? Just absolute brain rotting content that means nothing, right? Numbing the mind. This is most people's experience on social media. And I live in a damn echo chamber because I go on social media, I either see something that is funny as hell or really cool, and I want to share it with my friends or talk about it. But again, most people's average experience on social media is not a healthy one. So again, to live above the average line, your responsibility is going to be way more than the average. So you actually have to be worlds more aware while you're scrolling through social media and say, what am I actually watching right now? When I'm scrolling social media, I'm thinking about what I'm watching, and I'm thinking about, okay, how am I being manipulated here? Is this an ad? Is this a funnel to something? Is the algorithm going to pick up on the fact that I scrolled by this post really fast but stayed on this one? If I'm on the explore page and I see something, let me scroll by it because I see the little videos that are playing. I'm thinking. I'm actually analyzing what's going on. It's a second tier of awareness while you're using something. I mean, this is just one example of the kind of responsibility that's involved in being a higher functioning person. Now, responsibility is one of my favorite things, so I'm not going to demonize that by any means, but I think consuming some content is great. I would say maybe consuming my content is okay, right? I put it out there because I think it's valuable. Plenty of people disagree with me. That's cool too. But there is plenty of great content. There are some amazing creators out there, some amazing minds and ideas, but it's a matter of sticking with those things because Instagram does not give a shit about you. It gives a shit about you staying on the platform for as long as humanly possible. Is that in your best interest? I'm not too sure. Next question. What's your secret to avoid feeling super tired or drained in the afternoons / after work? So, a couple practical things here. And practical is kind of hard for me to get back down to sometimes. So this is a big goal of mine to actually bring some of my ideas down to a takeaway, something you can do. So a couple things here. First thing I do every morning is an ice bath. I hate it. It's very difficult. Your body temperature is very low in the morning, but I wake up, thug it out, get in that water for 3 minutes, and then the energy that you get from that, I don't even know the science. You hear all the stats, your dopamine increases by 4 billion%, and you jump up and hit the moon, all that kind of stuff. It works. I don't get ridiculously tired throughout the day most days. Another great thing to implement. Now, this is going to take into consideration where you work and what your lifestyle really looks like during the day, but going on walks. Going on a walk, I mean, it's obviously taking energy to go walk, but getting out of maybe the chair that you sit in all day, going on a 15-minute walk, being outside, it is very recharging. I mean, it's not anything crazy. It's not some supplement. It's not some wild tip, but God, I mean, you cut out the coffee and all the things that take your energy up and down, and then maybe you're eating junk food and, simplify. Go on some walks. Maybe cold shower, ice bath in the morning. This is going to take the guesswork out of why you might feel tired, the simplification. But yeah, again, cold water and walking, getting outside, just a little break in your day, so beneficial. I've been really implementing the walks a lot lately, and it's made a big difference for me. Next, what is the end product? Where do you want to be 50 years from now? So look, I am not huge on the 5, 10, 50-year goals. A lot of people in business and this self-help space, well, where do you want to be in 10 years? And everything you do should go towards that, right? I don't like to think this way because if I think right now and say, here's what I want my next 10 years to look like, I will absolutely be limiting myself. I'm placing a ceiling on the next 10 years because I'm only using the information, experience, and perspective that I have right now. So how can I define 10 years from now with a 10 years less than that perspective? It wouldn't be fair. Again, it would be putting a ceiling or a limit on that. So my idea is that I use every single 24 hours to the absolute best extent that I possibly can. And that is a baseline. Not every day is perfect. Not every day is high performing. Every day is my best. With every day being my best, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, is absolutely taken care of to the fullest extent. Because however many days are in 10 years, all of those being the best they possibly can be, 10 years from now will be the best it could be. Simple. So I am a one day at a time kind of person, not huge on the 5 and 10 year goals, because again, it could be quite quite the limit. Next question. How beef does it get with a wanker trap for a broski in it, bro? Bomba cafe, no. That's actually the question. It's my friend Daniel. He's quite the accent connoisseur, and he threw that in there, and that's hilarious. So, Daniel, hope you're seeing this podcast. Next question. How do you cultivate the mental resilience and emotional regulation to ignore the haters? One word, followed by a bunch of other words, but one word, honesty. With the success question earlier, what do I actually know about the people that seem to be successful? Very little, right? What do I actually know about people that are willing to direct hate towards somebody they do not even know? Very little, except for one thing. They are not where they want to be. They are projecting their own distaste with their life, because I personally have never in my life commented something hateful on someone's post. I made a YouTube video about this. This question is referring to a pretty in-depth dose of hate that I've received in the last month or so. You can go check that out if you want the full story. But never have I once put a hate comment on somebody's post. I might send a post to a friend and go, get a load of this. And that's the furthest extent. I wonder, man, what would my life have to look like if I made it my mission to tear somebody down online? And these are the things that I have to remind myself, because when you make content and then you have, I don't know, let's say 1,000 people saying, I hate you, you're the bad guy. I mean, I had people fill out my coaching form saying, kill yourself, as the first and last name. I have to look at that and say, what would my life have to look like to do this? There is nobody that is going to hate so intentionally that has a better life than you. I don't know who's said that, but I've heard a ton of people say it, and that is absolutely the truth. Nobody's going to spend their time tearing somebody else down that actually values their own time. So the mental resilience, again, for me is based in honesty. What can I actually know from what I'm receiving without just playing into the emotional aspect? Because it feels bad, of course, to have hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, I don't know, people saying, oh, you suck, right? Think of how many bad people there are in this world. Think of how many hateful people there are in this world. Maybe all of them got together and saw my videos. Maybe I am a bad person, you know what I mean? But I think through those things. I'm not afraid to sit down and go, what is the honest truth here? What did I actually say? What are my intentions? Was I wrong? Did I make a mistake? Was it imperfect? Right? People that are willing to just outwardly hate so intentionally, they are afraid of that conversation with themselves. Next question, what is the biggest thing you're currently struggling with? Congrats on the new pod. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for this question, because this is one of my favorite questions, since it's most of what I think about at any given time. What am I struggling with? What do I want to improve on? So I'll bring it to the content space. My biggest goal, right, is impact. I want to bring value to the people that see my content, even if it's something fun, right? I want it to be a form of permission. Oh, somebody sees that you can actually be serious, actually have a good personality, actually find things funny, actually take care of yourself, right? This whole dynamic is pretty rare in today's world. But the biggest thing I'm struggling with is the fact that value does not equal engagement. And for me, I'm not obsessed over, I want to just have a bunch of likes on my post, but 100,000 people seeing a great message, in my eyes, is better than 20,000 people seeing a great message. So there is actual value to engagement, views. And when I go into filming a video, and this is especially short form, when I go into filming anything, I go, what can someone walk away with that's actually going to be a new perspective? What's actually going to help somebody? And that does not equal views, right? So I always have this battle of, how can I be compelling enough in talking about my ideas to where people are actually wanting to listen, but how can I maintain the real value that's built into that message? And it seems like a simple thing to have to do, which is true. I mean, you even think about an author. You can write the best book in the world, but if the cover photo and title sucks cheeks, I mean, you're not going to read the book, right? So I have this responsibility to tap into the stealing someone's attention away, which is not really my focus when I'm going into creating content. And so I don't know. I don't think it's a bad pursuit or a bad thing to work on. I just don't think it's natural for me to think, all right, how can I grab someone's brain and then say this message? I just think, oh, well, let me say something valuable and the right people are going to hear it. So definitely a battle there. Now, this podcast, again, is to try and remedy that because I can actually speak on something at length. I mean, who knows why someone's going on Instagram, right? There could be a million different reasons. Probably one of the main reasons is to relax, kind of numb the mind a little bit. And then they see my video and I'm talking about all this stuff that's kind of work to listen to. And then it's not really going to be aligned. But you came to this podcast specifically because you thought, oh, he's going to be talking about things and I'd like to listen to it. And so that aligns way better. My mind works 100% more in the long form than the short form. So kind of something I'm struggling with. It's also really the heart of what I'm most excited about. Obviously, starting this podcast, I'm really stoked on that. And yeah, so the struggle and the win can both exist in one. Next question, how do you surround yourself with better friends? Genuinely struggling with that right now. So I think this is one of the largest predicaments that valuable people or people that are just trying to be better versions of themselves find themselves in. I was in that place 100%. So how do you surround yourself with better friends? There's a practical element here. I moved. So I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. The culture there is more college sports, going out. There's not really the health and wellness aspect of the community. I mean, there are small pockets of it, but it's not overwhelming. I moved to Austin, Texas, and damn near every person I meet is into health and wellness and working out and freaking cold plunges and eating healthy, right? So a change in environment is massive. Now, is a change in environment just easily, readily available for every single person? No. So conceptually speaking here, you have the responsibility to be that friend that you're looking for. So if you sit and think, I want the kind of friends that are willing to push me, I want the kind of friends that take care of themselves, I want friends that are undeniable people. Become that person first, and then becoming that person will attract other folks. Now look, you might be in that position where you're going, I've been working my ass off. I've been doing this stuff. I've been making the right decisions for years. Building community, building a circle is not an overnight thing. It's not a 1-year thing. It's not a 3-year thing. It's a lifetime thing. So don't rush. Now, the longing for friends is never going to go away. Humans are supposed to be in community, right? We need other people. But right now, if you do not have that circle and you're focusing on yourself, use this as an opportunity to build an incredible relationship with you. I mean, that is the greatest tool you can ever have in your tool belt. Knowing how to talk with yourself, not being afraid of that conversation, not needing to distract yourself from what's actually going on with you. Being able to sit with yourself is an amazing skill today. And it's crazy, right? Because think of how attached people are to their phones. And then what is the default other than using the phone? There isn't one. So the phone becomes the natural default. Now go back, 50 years or whatever the heck. People just read the newspaper all the time. That was kind of the phone equivalent back then. And then when someone gets tired of reading the newspaper, the default was to be bored, was to sit with yourself, was to look around on the train or at the coffee shop and just observe. Right? So historically, the default was observation. Now the default is distraction. And I think there's a problem within that, but I digress. I digress for a living. I do it professionally, actually. Kidding. Next question. What's your why in life? Now, this is a big one, but I should be able to answer this because I always tell people that if you don't know your why, if you don't know the reason behind the things that you're trying to do, it's probably why you're not doing them as well as you could or should. So my why, I spoke on this briefly, but my why on a day-to-day, right? I do so many things that I don't want to do. I get uncomfortable a lot. And the why is, okay, waking up early right now when I don't want to is a pure reflection of the kind of character I want to build within myself. Getting in this stupid ice bath when I don't want to is a pure reflection of the kind of character I want to build within myself. Running right now when I don't want to, right? You see the point. Everything I do is not only for the direct intended outcome, right? An ice bath's outcome is, well, getting freezing cold, maybe lowering inflammation, maybe having some better recovery, right? But for me, it's the principle of showing up to the thing I don't want to do because it builds the character. Now, can you measure this on a scale? No. Can you buy this? No. Can you really prove it to someone by saying, oh, I have this many discipline points? No. And this is why people don't try and get these characteristics in their life. They don't see that as so valuable until way later in life because everybody wants the bank account to be full. Everyone wants the dope-ass car so they can say, see, I made it. But proving success in character is much harder, but worlds more valuable. So day to day, right, the why is everything I'm doing is a reflection of my character. Now, the why on a grander scale is impact. I mentioned this before. I want to be an example of an actual individual. Again, the household name being the Kardashians is a pain in my ass. I wish people had someone legitimate to look up to. Say, wow, this is a person of character. This is that heroic person that every time they say they're going to do something, they do it. That's the person I want to be. And a lot of the folks that are that way, the ultra disciplined, the Navy SEALs, the David Goggins of the world, everybody looks at those people and says, man, that's awesome. But I don't fully resonate with that because I also want to be hilarious. And I also find freaking, ridiculous reels on Instagram hilarious, and I love to say horrible things to my friends, and I love to have a crazy personality and be wild sometimes and not so serious. And that difference is off-putting to people because the serious people are too serious for those that actually need a little bit more of the seriousness. And then the personality and the craziness is a little too crazy for the folks that don't see the chaotic, going out person taking care of themselves, and they go, oh, I can't have the personality. I don't want to be a part of that, right? So I want to be the person that takes everything seriously that needs to be taken seriously. And I want to have the things that are funny feel hilarious, and I want to say crazy things, and I want to, have a good time with my friends, and I don't know, do backflips off tables and stuff. Just being multi-dimensional. There are very few examples of people that are multi-dimensional, that are actually true to how they want to live, who they want to be. And when I meet somebody that takes their work seriously, gets done what needs to be done, is disciplined as hell, and they're the most fun person to be around, that is heroic to me because that is honest. When there's the freaking government official that can't even crack a smile and they're just in this one lane for their whole life, what are we doing? That is crazy because that person is getting in their car on the way home from the, press conference or whatever the heck you call it, and they're singing Katy Perry and shit, but, in front of everybody else, they have to be stone cold and one lane, one track mind. That's depressing to me. So a long-winded answer, as I tend to do, but my why is to be the example of somebody that actually is themselves in every way, actually is an individual, leaves room to think, create new ideas. And I think that that is the impact that I want to have. That's my why. That's what drives me. Next question. How do you overcome shyness? Okay, I'll make this one really simple. Repetition. So I used to be known as the shy person. I didn't want to order for myself at the restaurants when I was little. I didn't like to talk to new people and that kind of thing. So if you think of shyness as a weakness, how do you overcome weakness? Well, you consistently expose yourself to the stimulus of things that make you feel weak, that actually make you feel stronger. So think about the gym, right? Every day you go to the gym, I hope, right? Every day you go to the gym, you lift weights that make you feel weak. And then eventually that weight, looking back maybe on a year after training, you go, oh, this is the lightest thing ever. All right, so you overcome that. With shyness, if being around people and talking and, being outgoing is a really heavy weight to you, you just have to lift that weight or work up to lifting that weight over and over and over again until that weight is not intimidating to you. So, going from being little and not wanting to go order the ice cream cone at Chick-fil-A to now where I would never eat an ice cream cone. I was kidding. Well, not kidding, but, I don't have the fear of talking to people. I'll talk to really anybody if I want to. And having the skill of translating the inner mind into words is such a powerful thing. And being a part of communities, being a part of any sort of group where you're speaking about big ideas, recording yourself speaking like I'm doing right now, I think that's an amazing tool to sharpening that articulation skill, saying, hey, I can translate who I am and what I think into words, and I really think that that's a powerful thing. So overcoming the shyness would be reps. Go up and talk to somebody that maybe you don't know. And experiment with different things, right? You're going to find comfort in certain categories. If you're really well versed in something, you'd probably be more comfortable speaking about that to somebody that you don't know than speaking about your thoughts on a completely unrelated topic that you haven't spent much time thinking about. Another small tip in kind of the communication space, just writing. Writing in your speaking voice is also a big part of this, but writing down your ideas, you just become more familiar with them. So I think that's an amazing thing to implement as well. But it's going to come down to repetition. Go up and talk to people. Overcome the shyness. All right, next question. Does an ice bath after lifting kill your gains? Also can't wait for the podcast. Let's go. So does an ice bath after lifting kill gains? I actually think so. So when you lift, right, inflammation is created in your muscles. When you take an ice bath, the absolute opposite happens. And so doing that right afterwards is not recommended. I believe it's a 4 to 8 hour window that you would want to wait till after. I'm actually a big fan of ice bath at the beginning of the day. Well, I say big fan. I'm a big fan of being done with it. A big fan of doing it at the beginning of the day or before a workout. Before a workout can be great because it spikes your energy like nothing else. And that's a pretty good way to go about it. So afterwards, wouldn't recommend. Sauna after the gym is pretty sweet because it kind of enhances the whole inflammation thing. Makes you sweat your tail off, get a little shredded and big at the same time. Enhance the hypertrophy, but that would be my thoughts on that. Next question. What are your thoughts about God? My goodness. What a good question. Now, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole necessarily on this podcast because I've already answered a lot of incredible questions, but I am uncertain, to put it simply. I don't know if God exists. I'm not against God existing. I see a lot of confirmation bias built into people's belief where I pray for something to happen and it happens, right? And it is confirmation bias, right? It's already happened, and then you can attribute its happening to anything, right? So I'm successful. It's because God showed me the way, right? I'm successful. It's because I worked hard to get there, right? You could say either one on the other side of being successful. Everything comes down to faith. So in my eyes, faith has to be genuine. It doesn't feel necessarily like a choice. Maybe you choose things that get your mind to actually have faith, but there can be a lot of bias in that. People will tell me, go to church. And I say, well, isn't that a pretty biased approach to believing in one faith rather than remaining open? Do I have time in the day to search through every single religion and the ones that aren't even real and just wonder? There's a lot of work built into that. So it is a very difficult thing for me, because if the faith in God is not genuine, if I'm not genuinely compelled, then I can't say I have the faith. An analogy that I'll use sometimes in talking with people about this, I'll say, well, pick up some dirt from the ground and eat it and like it. Right now, you could pretend you like it. You could say, it's really good. It's really good dirt. Yeah, 100%. And you could continue playing that, but could you change your real genuine response deep down to eating dirt? Now, I'm not trying to compare believing in God actually to eating dirt, but it's more of you can't change the genuine response. You can change the outward response, but my genuine response is not fully in the direction of I actively believe that this is true. I have a lot of friends that are Christian. I have a lot of conversations about this. It is my actual favorite thing to talk about, but monologue style, it's kind of hard to just share all of my ideas on God. But deep topic, might have to do another episode on that, might take just questions regarding that, which would be really fun. So the last question here, which I think is a powerful one to end on. Do you ever question whether the life you want is too much to ask for? What I'll say about this, there is a big element of confidence. I think confidence is the driver for achieving anything, right? When you are confident in who you are, you know exactly the person you want to be. You know that you're acting towards that. You can communicate it. You have that clarity and sense of self. Absolute superpower. Now, a lot of my confidence, especially growing up, has come from the fact that I would look at someone successful, maybe a professional soccer player, and I would say, whoa, that's amazing, right? They have everything you could imagine. They do the coolest thing ever. That's what I wanted to be at a certain point, pro soccer player, right? And I said, well, what is the real difference between me and them? Really, what is the difference? And I could never come up with a legitimate answer besides the decisions that they have made and the decisions that I have made. Now, being born in a certain place, having certain physical capabilities, difference in genetics, those things are definitely real. But again, conceptually speaking, what is really different? What is holding me back more than them? Nothing. You see someone driving a Lamborghini down the street, most people go, oh my God. I mean, they treat that person like God. And I'm going, but what's the difference? A set of choices, right? And so this confidence for me in the life that I want to have, right? The confidence in, I would say hoping I get the life I want, but I'll say knowing I'm going to have the life I want. Is it too much to ask? I wouldn't say I'm asking for it. I'm creating it, right? So my choices on a daily basis are what I look to say I'm creating the life that I want. Those are in alignment and I keep going, right? There's a lot of sacrifice involved in that. There's a lot of uncertainty involved in that, but continuing to take the steps forward is the key for me. So this is going to wrap up the first episode of, again, the podcast that does not quite have a name yet, but this has been such a fun time talking through these ideas. Just having the opportunity to even create something like this and have people listen is an absolute pleasure. I am more than grateful to be in the position that I'm in. Before recording this episode, I was kind of sitting down, organizing the questions, and I almost got emotional thinking about my past self, maybe from 5 or 10 years ago. If he were to see where I am today, I mean, it's unexplainable how excited he would be, right? And how much disbelief almost would be involved in that. And so I really want to say thank you so much to anybody that has listened to this episode at all, and especially if you've made it to this point. I am so grateful for you. I'm going to post this probably on YouTube and Spotify and all the things, so we'll definitely be posting that as many places as I can to get this out there. I know on Spotify and YouTube, you can comment, so I want to hear your thoughts. Definitely want to hear further questions. Send me a message on Instagram, TikTok, all those kinds of things. All of my usernames are Crew Mahoney, CRUMAHONEY. So reach out anywhere. Want to hear what you thought of this. Leave a like or 5 stars or whatever all the metrics are. I don't even know how this works. But again, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.